few days ago, we went over the men's IPF world records, and I thought it'd make sense to go over the female IPF world records. So these are from 2021. What you're going to notice with a lot of these women is because they are going to have a smaller shoulder width, usually, it means that the relative distance to max legal, so again, covering the knurling marks 81 centimeters apart, is going to give a more abducted arm position. What this means is, yes, a shorter range of motion. So keep in mind some of these clips are not going to have the foot rule or the elbow depth rule in play. So you're going to have shorter ranges of motion. You're also probably going to see more flexibility, meaning tucking the feet back will likely give a much higher arch position for some of these lifters. Just generally, females tend to have more often cases of hypermobility. Um, so combined, this tighter foot position further back, the bigger arch, the smaller range of motion, in my opinion, this is going to actually give a more it's going to allow for a smaller margin of error. There, if you have a large range of motion, you can misgroove it an inch or two here and there, and you have such a large range overall that you can salvage it. But when your range of motion is very small, you just don't have that situation. Not a lot of internal rotation here for what is this, Indonesia. You do have the tucked back foot style though. And yeah, check this out. That is a super, super far out arm position relative to the shoulder width, right? So again, this is before the elbow depth rule. Coming pretty much straight down, stretching the crap out of the chest plate. Now, when she presses, it's going to be a really fine line. If she presses too far back, it's instantly going to slam her in the face. That's just perfectly grooved. All right, 52 is 160 from Russia. Does it show us the setup? No. Super tucked back. A lot of wrist extension. You can even see it just from the front view here. It actually looks like the bar is not even totally in line with her shoulders horizontally. Could just be the angle. Touching a little low on the chest, but that just might be because of how tight that chest plate is. The lower you touch, it does give you more room to play with that line. Just like if you're squatting and you're squatting straight down with your hips and knees both very close to the midfoot, it's kind of the same idea. When you let the hips come back, or when you let your touch be a little bit lower, you get a little bit more margin for error. 165 by Russia here in the 57s. Max legal, once again, no surprise there. Getting very high up on the traps. Fairly foot back position for her. I will never understand people opening their hands. What that does tell me is that she's going to have a pretty loose grip on the barbell. She's going to be really focusing on the weight is on the meat of her palm. And she's perhaps part of that is if the back is loose while you're setting up, it allows for a little bit more spinal extension, arguably, if you've not retracted the scaps already. So perhaps she gets a larger arch, it comes out of the unrack, forcing this fella to take all the load. But then as it's coming out, as she already has the arch set, that's when she can start to get some rigidity in her back, and then she closes her hands. And that's how you saw her kind of sinking into the bench. See, there's this kind of sinking motion. Get the start command. Really trying to keep the elbows out. Yeah, that's a tight line. Clearly locked out. No questions about that. Russia again in the 63s. Not a super jacked chest plate. Can't tell if this is low cut or not. Can't see under her singlet. Elbows are very nice and low. I actually do think that is fairly jacked. I think that is a low cut collar. So jacked chest plate. The sleeves are super low. You can just see her elbows there. The sleeves are so jacked that you can see, if this pauses nicely, it's kind of hard to see, but this part of the shirt would typically be back here. She has jacked the sleeves down so far. Yeah, the collar is so jacked that you can't even actually see it under her singlet. That's how jacked that collar is. And you can see what a pain in the butt it is to grab the bar for her. When you're in a super tight shirt, that's what will happen. You'll start to get this inward motion. We want to be stretching it out, but that's just a really jacked shirt again. This is very far towards the front of her. Very aggressive. Which is unsurprising if you're benching a world record. Elbows out. Not a crazy amount of wrist extension. There you go, fair amount. Nothing crazy though. Again, elbows out is the key here. Super, super wide foot position. That's going to give her a lot of lateral stability, which, I mean, for her, that makes sense maybe. Maybe 175 is quite a bit of load. It's giving her a ton of lateral stability. It'll also give her a little bit of that pushback off the chest, which she's going to need, given how jacked the chest plate is and low the sleeves are. And then she comes to lockout. Really impressive to not get bullied around by the shirt. Russia 177.5 in the 69s. We don't get a full video here. Sleeves look quite low, fairly tucked back, foot position. Collar is not that low at all. So we might see a little bit of a higher touch point here. Yeah, see, it doesn't really float towards the belly. This is a pretty comfortable area that she can press back from without needing a ton of support from the legs to drift back. Yeah, so he doesn't need to push back that much because of the higher touch point. Higher meaning towards the head, lower would be towards the belly. Nicely done. Rhea Stin, 191. That's child's play for her these days. Rhea, super wide stance, again, coached by Blaine, super low sleeves, very, very, very high collar position. That's the same way I bench. Very high collar position, very low sleeves, fairly wide stance. I know Rhea gets a ton of body shift. You can't really see it here, but she gets a ton of body shift as she presses because of that wide stance. That's her 72 world record. Here's the 84 one, which I think she's gone higher now. I think it's at 228. Not a ton of wrist extension. Again, with the feet like this, she can use them to press the bar back. So arguably, with the wrist straighter, she gets a little bit more direct force transfer from the arms, and then the feet can help her propel the body back instead of using more wrist extension. Super clean. 84 plus, 235. That's a jack shirt. She's got short arms, very short humerus here, but a super jacked chest plate. Now, because she is wider, this max legal grip isn't going to look the same as it has on the rest of the females, right? This is going to be more typical to how a male might look benching. See, the arms are not as abducted outwards. Some wrist extension, feet fairly tucked back, a fairly high touch point, not that low towards her belly. Those sleeves are plenty low and tight though, so she's getting a lot of assistance out of that, and the jacked collar. Really nicely done. I think it'd be remiss if we did not look at this past week's world record either. Super, super low, super low sleeves. Her chest plate is actually quite jacked. You could see it when she's walking up to the bar. So a very overall aggressive style. Feet very tucked back. Huge arch. I can't tell if she's beltless here. She's able to touch relatively high up, not dumping it, despite how jacked all these variables are. And because of that, she doesn't have to bring it back a ton towards her head. She can keep it in a more or less straighter bar path. Very impressive. Uh, hope that helps. Hope that makes sense. We can do more of these, but I think the general concept is understanding how these sleeves, the chest plate, and the wrist extension and the foot position are all working in unison together to give you an overall style or an overall approach to benching. Hope it helps. See you guys.